Alrighty, everybody, we just finished just a second ago. We took care of closing in these gaps between the two roofing levels. We're going to go back to our ground floor. We're going to start placing some exterior windows. Okay, yes, I'm actually on the floor plan. Some of you were looking at the ground floor or the second floor of the ground floor ceiling plan. You're going to be seeing some different things. We're not dealing with the ceiling plan in this particular project. So if you want to, you can just collapse that out so you don't have to worry about seeing it. Not really, the ceiling plans are not something that we're worrying about at all for this project. I'm going to start zooming in to this portion of the house. It's right by where the storefront is, and I'm going to click on the architecture tab. I'm going to click on window. Now a window knows that it's going to belong in a wall. That's just the rules of the game. But I don't want a fixed window. I want a double hung window. But you'll notice I don't have that. The window command, while I'm actually trying to place a window, I can come over here and say load family. And this will whisk us away to the magical place where all of the families are. You know how AutoCAD has blocks? Revit has a family. That's just the name they chose to give to it. And what I want is I want a casement with trim, and I'm going to hold down my control key so I can also pick double hung with trim. I want both of these. I will click open, and that's going to load both of those families and all of its subtypes into this project. Uh, so now when I scroll through, you can see I've got casement, I've got double hung, and I scroll down a little further, and there's fixed. I want to start with 36 by 72. Okay. Its sill height, it's a foot off the ground, and its head height is at 7 feet. It's perfectly fine. It's exactly what I want. I'm going to place 4 windows. And the first window, well, you know what? We're going to have to fine tune its placement. I'm just going to place these randomly. I'll come back and fix it here in a minute, but I want 4 windows running right through here. When I'm done placing my 4 windows, I'll hit escape on the keyboard twice. And this is where things start getting a little tricky because we're actually going to start placing dimensions. And these dimensions are going to help us locate the windows, but they're also some of the dimensions we need to actually document the project. Now, those of you who remember the dimensioning process in AutoCAD, there was one of the lines of the dimensions that was dedicated for locating openings in the exterior framing, and that's what we're doing right now. Well, because these column grids, well, they're not actually column grids, they're building grids. These lines, these column grids, indicate the exterior face of framing. So we can use these to dimension off of real easy. So the first thing I select is going to be this grid reference. Then I'm going to come up and I'm going to hit this edge of the window, and I'm going to work across getting every single window edge one at a time. And then the last place I click, I'm going to have to zoom in to see this. The last thing I click is going to be the inside edge of the storefront here. So another left click right there. And I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. And that'll work. Right about there. Okay. Now, according to the handout, and I just a little while ago, I actually posted the handout on Blackboard. You know what? Let's take a second and let's pull that up. I'll just do it this way. Come on. Da, 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 da. There we go. The list, you'll see Project 3 example PDF. This is the revised, this is the updated version. So download this one. It's got the updated dimensions and a couple things that have been tweaked from this one. So you don't want to use this one anymore. I'm going to see if I can actually delete this. So I don't think I'll be able to do it here. Okay, so there's that. So we have an updated PDF, and this is the information that I'm going on. So the dimension that I have between the inside edge of this storefront and the opening here. Now, why am I selecting the inside edge of the storefront? Well, it's because that's this opening right here. That's why I've selected the inside edge of the storefront, because it aligns with where the wall actually stops. So I'm going to highlight this window, and I can click in this dimension and change the window's position. This dimension is supposed to be 4'6". And then each one of these dimensions here, I can zoom in, that's not supposed to be 2.5 inches, that's supposed to be 2 feet. Now, if that's 2.5 inches, what's that, 1'9½"? I can actually use my move command to select all 3 of these windows, use my move command, start just clicking out in nowhere and say 1'9½". Let's see how close I was. There we go. So not only did that move my windows all in one time, and it just so happened they were already 2 feet apart, but this spacing that you see right here, 4'6" and 3 foot and 2 foot and 3 foot and 2 foot and 3 foot and 2 foot and 3 foot, that's what we want. So I was able to move all those at the same time, and the dimensions automatically updated. It should leave us, there it is, 2'10½" until we get to this grid line. That is exactly what I wanted it to be. Okay. I'm going to show you another little trick here. I actually want to create more of this exact same kind of window. So if I select this window, I can come up here. Now it says modify window. Anytime you see this green, it has to do with what you have actively selected. I can click on this little icon right here, and it says create similar. So places an element of the same type as the selected element. So if you want to make if you want to place a new version of that exact same thing that you have highlighted, this is the button that you click. 2 windows here. I need 2 windows here. And I'm going to zoom in here. Now you see, I hope you guys can see this. What side depends on what side of the window my mouse is, or what side of the wall my mouse is on. Since you always want in this case, you want the glazing on the inside because it's an operable window. Okay, so as I'm placing these, one there, there, and there, and let's see, I've got one more of this size over here, and here. There we go. So those are the windows of this particular size that I'm placing. And you notice I've seemingly randomly placed them around the drawing. That's because I'm going to go back and I'm going to modify my dimensions to help me determine where these windows actually occur. So I'm going to click escape twice. And I'm going to get these windows. But in order to properly place them, I'm going to use Dimensionalize. But I don't want to have a separate dimension line object. And you see how all these highlighted as one object? This is different from how AutoCAD does dimensions and Revit does dimensions. As I can grab these, they all update in one shot. That's really nice. I really like that about how Revit does dimensions. But I need to add additional stuff to this. So I'm going to click on Edit Witness Lines, and that will allow me to come by and say Interior Face of Framing, Grid Line. Come over here, I'm going to get this grid line. And then get window, window, and then this other building line. And now I'm done placing this, I'm done modifying and placing this dimension, so instead of click escape, because that'll undo all these changes, I just left click out in nowhere. So I'm not actually selecting an element that I want to dimension. Now as I zoom in, well, I'll get that later. I want to get this now. We need to locate these windows properly. This dimension and be able to change what it says, I have to highlight the window. Now I can edit what that dimension is and have the object itself update, or have the object move. So this dimension is supposed to be 2'5½". And then this next window is also 2'5½", which leaves me 2'6" on this side right here. So from the outside of the building, these windows are going to be very aesthetically pleasing. I want this window to line up with that one. We're going to dimension it, but I also want to show you that we can come up to our modified tab, click on Align. The first object that we select is what we're aligning to. So there is a center line of this window. And we'll click on the center line of this window that we just corrected with our dimensions. And then the object that I'm moving is going to be this window because I want these windows to line up. Just like that. Now I'm going to place some more dimensions. Except this time I'm going to start at grid line C. Click my way across these windows like that. Click modify. That distance is supposed to be 1'6". Select this opposite window, and this dimension is supposed to be 1'6". Now we'll pick up some additional dimensions across here. Start at the grid. Come to either side of the window, and you see it's already right there. It says it's 2'5.5". I'm going to pick up this grid line. I'm going to come to either side of the face of the CMU. Now, if I zoom in, I could actually snap on the center line of the CMU. I don't want to do that. I want the exterior face. And then come by grid line. I'm actually going to pass this grid line and come across to this one. And then these two sides of the window. And then that grid line. I'm going to left click. Yeah, we'll place it right about there. Now this window, I also want to line up with this window. So I want that to be straight all the way across. So once again, back on my modify tab, click on Align, center line of this window. It's kind of hard to see, but if you zoom in, you can see that the center line of the window wants to highlight. This is the object I'm aligning to. This is the object that I'm aligning, that I'm moving to align. And these dimensions line up. So this 2'10.5" matches this 2'10.5". All right. Let's get another dimension string across here. We'll start with this grid. Either side of the window, and then back to there. (7'8". You know what? My handout actually reads an incorrect dimension. So we're going to leave this dimension as it is because that window actually happens to be perfectly centered on that exterior wall. So those of you, because I just now noticed this, even those of you with the revised handout that I just showed you in this video, it's got the wrong dimensions. This dimension should be 7'8". I guess I'll be putting up a version 3 of the example PDF before too much longer. Okay, so we're done with this part for now. We're going to go back here in just a second. We're going to add a few more windows, and we're going to put some exterior doors in here and a few other things, and that's going to be in the next video. So see you guys in just a second.